Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today I'm building Carol Dienheim from Symphogear. For a bit of background, Carol Malus Dienheim is the leader of the alchemic cult. She's a brilliant alchemist who has survived for centuries by transferring her consciousness to different homunculus bodies, and she seeks to understand the mysteries of the world by, as she says, dissecting it. So what do we want from this build? Well, Carol is a master of alchemy, and she can summon the elements of air, water, earth, fire, and silver to either attack or defend with. Unlike other people in Symphogear, she does this by burning her memories as fuel, and she can burn additional memories to make her spells stronger. Luckily, she has a lot of memories to burn, as thanks to her habit of creating new clone bodies to inhabit, she's actually hundreds of years old. Looking over at ability scores, I'll be using the standard point array. If you want to roll for stats, that's fine, just make sure your intelligence and charisma are high enough to multiclass. We'll start off by dumping strength. We don't need it, so we're not going to invest in it. We'll put it 14 in dexterity, I'd say magic harp strings count as whips, and a 12 in constitution will let us take a few hits. Carol's one of the big bads of the series, she can't go down too easy. Intelligence is 15, Carol is something of a scientist, but all that memory burning has left her a little bit unstable, so we'll make wisdom 10. Then we'll finish with a 13 in charisma, since it might help to be able to perform in a world where singing is power. Since Carol keeps averting death by jumping into different clone bodies, we'll make her a Reborn, giving us +2 to constitution and +1 to intelligence, as well as proficiency in acrobatics and nature. We also choose to be either small or medium at character creation. There isn't actually a set size for Reborn. Maybe see if your DM will let you be small for Carol's normal form, then become medium when she transforms into her adult form. Reborn have a deathless nature thanks to cheating death, meaning that they don't need to eat, drink, breathe, or sleep, and they can't be put to sleep by magic. Instead of sleeping, they can take a long rest in 4 hours by staying inactive and motionless. They also have resistance to poison damage and advantage on saves against poison and disease, as well as on death saves. They also get flashes of knowledge from their past lives. A number of times per day equal to our proficiency bonus, we can add a d6 to any skill check that we make. Like I said, Carol's a scientist, so we'll take the Sage background for proficiency in Arcana and History. Then we'll start out as a wizard to get Religion and Investigation. As a wizard, we also have Arcane Recovery, letting us recover spell slots on a short rest once per day. We can get back any number of expended slots as long as their total level is equal to or less than half of our wizard level, and as long as none of them are higher than 5th level. Speaking of spells, Carol's method of casting by burning memories is pretty unique in Symphogear, but it strikes me as really similar to the D&D system of limited spell slots, so we're just going to call her spell slots her memories that she's burning up to use her spells. Other than her cantrips, of course, like Firebolt, which deals up to 4d10 fire damage with a ranged spell attack, Create Bonfire, which lights a fire that deals up to 4d8 damage to anyone who passes through it and fails a dexterity save, and Ray of Frost, a ranged spell attack that deals up to 4d8 cold damage on a hit and reduces the target's speed by 10 feet for a turn. For first level spells, Mage Armor and Shield are pretty standard wizard fare. Mage Armor makes our AC 13 plus our Dexterity modifier. Carol's armor, once she transforms, looks vaguely half-plate-ish, I would say, but it's a magical transformation and we aren't getting medium armor proficiency, so we'll just say it's Mage Armor. Shield throws up a barrier as a reaction, giving us +5 to our AC. This could be a magic barrier, it could be the strings of Durdubla, either works, it really doesn't matter. Chromatic Orb is good for a caster who uses multiple elements, throwing a ranged spell attack that deals 3d8 damage of our choice of acid, cold, lightning, fire, poison, or thunder damage. At 2nd level, we get an Arcane Tradition, and since music is power in Symphogear, we're going to be using Bladesinging. Our training in War and Song gives us proficiency in Performance, as well as with light armor and one kind of one-handed melee weapon. I already said our harp strings would be whips, so whips it is. We also get a magical girl transformation with Blade Song. A number of times per day equal to our proficiency bonus, we can transform as a bonus action. The transformation lasts for up to a minute, and during that time our speed increases by 10 feet, we get advantage on acrobatics checks, and we add our intelligence modifier to both our AC and any saves we make to maintain concentration. 3rd level wizards get 2nd level spells. Gust of Wind blows a 60-foot long line of wind for up to a minute in whatever direction we choose. Creatures that start their turn in the wind have to make a strength save or be pushed 15 feet away, and a creature trying to move against the wind uses 2 feet of movement for every 1 foot that they move. Wind is also useful for blowing away clouds and gases and extinguishing fires. Rime's Binding Ice forces a Constitution save on creatures in a 30-foot cone, dealing 3d8 cold damage on a fail. If they fail, they're also partially encased in ice, reducing their speed to 0 for up to a minute. Half damage and no ice on a success. Now, Carol's Harpstrings come out of both of her gauntlets, so we'll grab the Dual Wielder feat at 4th level. Our AC goes up by 1 if we're using a melee weapon in each hand, and we can dual wield even if the weapons we're using aren't light, like, for instance, whips. We get another cantrip as well, like Booming Blade. We can make a melee spell attack with a weapon, and on a hit, the creature is encased in energy, in addition to the weapon's normal damage. If they willingly move before our next turn, they take 1d8 thunder damage. As we level up, the damage increases, and the initial hit with the weapon also deals extra thunder damage, until it caps out at 17th level, when the initial hit deals an extra 3d8 thunder damage, and then moving deals 4d8. Just remember that even though our whips do have reach, we can only use Booming Blade against a creature that's within 5 feet of us. That's just how the spell works. For 3rd level spells, Fireball is a classic. All creatures within 20 feet of a point we choose within range make a dexterity save or take 8d6 fire damage, half on a success. And Erupting Earth makes the ground explode in a 20-foot cube centered on a point we choose, dealing 3d12 bludgeoning damage to any creatures in the area who fail a dexterity save, again, half on a success. The area also becomes difficult terrain. Combine this with Gust of Wind to make creatures spend 4 feet of movement for every foot they move if you really want them to social distance. 6th level Bladesingers get extra attack, letting us attack twice with the attack action instead of once. Unlike most other classes that get extra attack though, Bladesingers can switch out one of their attacks for one of their cantrips, so we can attack twice with our whip, or attack once and then Booming Blade or Firebolt. Plus, that still leaves our bonus action open for a leveled spell if we want to cast one. I really wanted to segue from that into talking about a great 4th level spell that we get that we can cast as a bonus action, but all of the 4th level spells that I want for this build take an action, so... oh well. With Elemental Bane, we force a creature to make a Constitution save. If they fail, they lose any resistance they have to our choice of Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Thunder. Also, the first time each turn they take damage of that type, they take an additional 2d6 of the same type. Then we can capitalize on that with Ice Storm, pounding a 20-foot radius, 40-foot high cylinder with a hailstorm that deals 2d8 bludgeoning and 4d6 cold damage to every creature in the area who fails a dexterity save. The ground also becomes difficult terrain until our next turn. With our next ability score improvement, we'll take Metamagic Adept, giving us 2 sorcery points and 2 metamagics to enhance our spells. Quickened spell lets us get the most out of our extra attack by letting us burn both of our points to cast a spell that normally takes an action as a bonus action. And Transmuted spell uses 1 point to take a spell that normally deals acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder damage, and change its damage to another type from that same list. For our 5th level spells, Cone of Cold is nearly as iconic as Fireball, dealing 8d8 cold damage to any creature in a 60-foot cone who fails a Constitution save, half on a success. And Steel Wind Strike puts our whips to good use, as we vanish and make melee spell attacks against up to 5 creatures we can see within 30 feet, dealing 6d10 force damage on each hit. Then we can teleport so that we're next to any of the attack targets. 10th level Bladesingers get Song of Defense, which uses Durdubla's strings to defend us as a reaction, burning a spell slot when we take damage while we're in our Blade Song, to reduce the damage by 5 times that spell slot's level. And for our last wizard cantrip, Blade Ward gives us resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage dealt by weapons for a turn. I'm usually not super huge on Blade Ward since it takes up our action to cast, but being able to cast it as part of our extra attack makes it a lot better. Speaking of, how about we get some spells that actually use our bonus action? Tasha's Otherworldly Guise is a full-on magical girl transformation, giving us +2 AC, a 40-foot flying speed, and either immunity to fire and poison damage in the poisoned condition, or radiant and necrotic damage in the charmed condition. We can also use our intelligence for our weapon attacks instead of dexterity, and all of our weapon attacks are magical. And despite the name, Fizban's Platinum Shield actually protects us by conjuring the element of silver. For up to a minute, our silver magic gives us resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, and poison damage, and gives us evasion, meaning that we take no damage on a successful dexterity save and half damage on a failed one, against effects that would normally deal half on a success and full damage on a fail. We also get half cover, so we have +2 to our AC and dexterity saves. Level 12 brings us another ability score improvement, but I don't really want any more feats, so we're just going to bump our intelligence up to 18. Prismatic Spray calls up all the different Aristotle octaves to shoot a multicolored blast in a 60-foot cone. For each creature in the area, we roll a d8 to see what ray affects them. Then they make a dexterity save to try to resist the effect. On a 1, the red ray deals 10d6 fire damage, and half on a success. 2 through 5 do the same, just with acid, lightning, poison, and cold damage. If they fail their save and get a 6 on the d8, they're restrained by the indigo ray. They then have to make constitution saves on each of their turns. If they pass 3 times before they fail 3 times, the spell ends for them. If they fail 3 times first, then they're actually turned to stone and permanently petrified. If they fail their save against ray number 7, they're blinded by the violet ray. Then they make a wisdom save at the start of our next turn. On a pass, they're no longer blinded, and on a fail, they are immediately teleported to another plane of the DM's choice. And then, they're no longer blinded. If we roll an 8 on the d8, then they're actually hit by 2 rays. We roll the d8 2 more times and re-roll any more 8s. 14th level Bladesingers get Song of Victory, letting us add our intelligence modifier to the damage of our melee weapon attacks while in our Blade Song. I know that sounds a little bit lackluster after talking about inflicting 10d6 damage, permanent petrification, or interdimensional exile, but I mean, we're using whips, so every little bit helps. Whips don't really do much damage. No, that's what we have spells for, like Dark Star, which gathers supergravity particles to crush our enemies. We create a sphere with up to a 40-foot radius. The area inside the sphere is filled with difficult terrain and magical darkness, and no sound can be created inside or pass through it, meaning any creatures inside are deafened, immune to thunder damage, and can't cast spells with verbal components. Any creature that starts its turn in it or moves into the sphere makes a constitution save, taking 8d10 force damage on a fail. If this damage kills them, they're just straight up disintegrated. That wouldn't be a problem if it happened to us, of course, because we have our clones. We prepare a clone of ourselves that can be the same age or younger in a special container. The clone takes 4 months to mature, but once it does, it remains inert as long as the container isn't disturbed. And if we ever die, we can just copy-paste our soul, memories, personality, and abilities to the clone. We'll cap off our intelligence with our last ability score improvement and get our ultimate defense, using the Aristotelian elements to form a prismatic wall. The wall is a flat plane up to 90 feet long, 30 feet high, and 1 inch thick, or a sphere with a 30-foot radius. It's made of 7 layers of magic that together block all attacks and spells from passing through. It doesn't technically stop creatures from passing through physically, but any creature that does so suffers the effects of each layer it passes through, effectively taking all of the same effects that Prismatic Spray can produce at the same time. The wall can be broken down layer by layer, but each layer has a specific method to get rid of it, and they have to be broken down in order. So a creature could eliminate a couple of layers to reduce what it has to push through, but it's a bit of an undertaking. We're going to finish off this build with a couple levels of Sorcerer. Since Carol is an alchemist who wants to dissect and understand the world, I think she would fit as a Mage of Quandrix, since they're all about breaking magic down into math. In that vein, we get Functions of Probability. Whenever we cast a leveled spell that targets a creature, we can choose either that creature or another creature within 30 feet of it, which can include ourselves. We can either force the chosen creature to make a wisdom save, subtracting a d6 from the next attack roll they make before our next turn on a fail, or the chosen creature can add a d6 to one attack roll or save that they make before our next turn. Quandrix mages also learn the Guidance cantrip, adding a d4 to a creature's ability check, along with the 4 cantrips we get for being a first level sorcerer. I'm going to go nice and simple with these and take Shape Water, Gust, Control Flames, and Mold Earth, which all let us do minor effects with water, air, fire, and earth respectively. For first level spells, Quandrix sorcerers get Guiding Bolt for a shot of the silver element, firing a ranged spell attack that deals 4d6 radiant damage, and gives the next attack roll against the target advantage. Quicken it and shoot it off as a bonus action, then we can use that advantage ourselves with our whips, or even one of our cantrip attacks like Booming Blade or Firebolt. Second level sorcerers get a Font of Magic, and this is where that whole spell slots as memories thing is going to come into play. We can convert our sorcery points into spell slots, or we can burn our spell slots to get more sorcery points, that we can use to enhance our spells with our Metamagics, which we get 2 more of at our capstone, the 3rd level of sorcerer. Heightened Spell uses 3 points to give a target of our spell disadvantage on the first save they make against that spell. And Empowered Spell uses 1 point to re-roll one of the spell's damage dice. Since we're a Quandrix mage, we also get 2 extra spells at this level. Enlarge Reduce to increase or decrease a creature or object size by one size category for up to a minute with our concentration, and Spike Growth, which uses our Earth magic to make the ground sprout hard spikes in a 20-foot radius around a point we choose. The whole area becomes difficult terrain, and the creature moving through it takes 2d4 piercing damage for every 5 feet it moves. Now that the build is complete, the question becomes, how good is it? Well, we have enormous damage potential across a variety of damage types. Prismatic Spray and Prismatic Wall in particular can just end fights by themselves. We're also very good at hindering or slowing down enemies, with spells to paralyze them, trap them, or restrict their movement. And since that kind of spell often uses concentration, I should also mention that with our Bladesong, we have a +7 to all of our concentration saves. And for a build with all d6s for hit dice, we're surprisingly tanky. Between Mage Armor, Dual Wielder, and our Bladesong, we have 21 AC, which goes to 23 with either Otherworldly Guise or Platinum Shield, and 28 with just Shield, along with multiple damage resistances, ways to reduce damage, and, oh yeah, actual immortality thanks to our clones. On the other hand, those clones take 4 months and 3,000 gold to make, so we probably don't have an endless supply. Sooner or later, we could run out. We also only have 5 sorcery points to use our metamagics, and while we can burn spell slots to get more, that uses up our bonus action, and ultimately having the spell slot might just be more useful. And finally, the whips really aren't doing much for the build. They max out around 1d4 plus 10 damage while we have Otherworldly Guise up, so we have much better damage options, and having to take Dual Wielder keeps us from using that ability score improvement for something that might have been more useful, like, I don't know, more charisma for our sorcerer spells, or maybe even just tough for an extra load of HP. So I actually wasn't sure if I was going to use Bladesinging for Carol. I was heavily considering Lore Master, since it seemed to fit with her focus on memory and knowledge, plus it had alchemical casting, which would have let her burn spell slots to enhance her spells more directly than metamagic. So it was pretty much dead even with Bladesinging in my mind. In the end, I decided that that would feel a bit too much like the Edward Elric build, and I really did actually want the music connection with Bladesinging. So instead I decided to completely rip off another build that I have, and make a magical girl who's 17 levels of Bladesinging and uses a whip. Oh well. I still really like how the build came out. It's definitely one to remember. I hope you enjoyed the build. If you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please leave them in the comments below. Leave a like or subscribe if you want to see more, and if you want to support what I'm doing here, you can check the description for the link to my Patreon for access to the Discord channel and early access to future builds. Thank you for watching, friends. I will see y'all later.